President Barack Obama turns 50 today, but the massive fall in global markets can't have been the birthday president he was hoping for. Here to talk with us now is the CEO of the US Studies Centre, Professor Geoffrey Garrett. Professor Garrett, welcome.
Good morning.
Is Barack Obama the leader everyone thought he was going to be?
Interesting question, isn't it? I think there are long-term and short-term answers to that. In the short term, it really doesn't look very good for Barack Obama. I think he made some big tactical errors with respect to the debt ceiling crisis problem we had earlier in the week. In the longer term, I think most people would say that his judgment on the big issues continues to be fine. He just doesn't seem to be able to lead the country at the moment.
What were the tactical errors in relation to what happened earlier this week with the debt ceiling? Wasn't he just pushed into an incredibly difficult situation by the Tea Party?
At the end of the day, that was exactly right, but I think the tactical error the President made was not to frame the debt and deficit debate himself 6 months ago. What he did was leave it to the Republicans, and the Republicans then framed it as debt is America's biggest problem. I think that's probably not accurate, but it did give the Tea Party all the running politically.
What do you mean frame it? How did he fail to frame it?
Well, what he could have said is, yes, we've got some long-run debt problems, but the pressing problem is reviving the American economy, so let's balance a little more stimulus today while we think about making Medicare and Social Security secure into the future. He didn't do that. He left the Tea Party to say government is the problem, not the solution, so all we must do in the US is cut, cut, cut. And the Tea Party then held the country ransom by saying, if you don't cut, we'll cause a default on American debt.
So is it primarily a problem of him managing a perception of his plan in the community? Is not selling his plan effectively enough?
Well, that's the leadership point, but I think there are two underlying things going on in the US that just make it really hard to govern at the moment. The first one is that the gulf between the Republican right and the Democratic left is wider than it's ever been. The second one is that the tepid US economic recovery now looks like it's flatlining, and people are really worried about a double dip, a real double dip recession. That's a tough time to be trying to lead.
He was changing his political team recently. Is that a sign that he acknowledges there are issues there?
It's quite interesting. A lot of the early big names from the Obama administration have left, particularly on the economic side. Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary, is back at Harvard University. Austin Goolsbee, Obama's #1 economic advisor, is back at Chicago. There is a question, who's advising the president today?
What's the likelihood of a victory next year?
The victory next year for Obama depends today, as it's always depended, I think, on two statistics, the unemployment rate and house prices. Obama thought that both of those had bottomed out, but now it looks like things might get even worse. So I think he's desperate to try to kickstart the American economy, but he doesn't have any money left, so he's going to have to rely on the Federal Reserve, I think, to do another round of quantitative easing.
We were talking to an economist earlier, and he was saying he thought basically Barack Obama had done all he could in the circumstances, and the situation was going to play out effectively as it was anyway. What can Barack Obama effectively do to further control unemployment and house prices?
Yeah, I mean, that's the right question to ask, and I think it just underlines that at the end of the day, this debt ceiling crisis will look like a sideshow. The big story is the problem in the real American economy. So what can Obama do about it? He fired a lot of financial bullets, fiscal bullets, in 2009 and 2010, so he doesn't have much left. I think he's got to go back to Ben Bernanke at the Fed and say, listen, the Fed's tried to bail us out twice already. We're going to need a third round from you.
And that grey hair betrays the stress that he's under.
Yeah, it's, John F. Kennedy, whatever it is, 50 years ago got Marilyn Monroe to sing him happy birthday. Barack Obama wakes up and the world stock market is down 5%. No surprise that he's got a few more grey hairs.
Professor Geoffrey Garrett, thanks very much.
My pleasure, Joe.